Today, we revisit a classic in the Buck 119, discuss its capability as a camp knife, and correct a few data points that I missed when I originally reviewed this knife over a year ago. Well, that's right, folks. Welcome back to another revisit video. This is fun. This is a concept that we launched back a few months ago, where from time to time, I'll take a product that I had reviewed in years past and just revisit it, see how it's still performing. Are there things that are now on the market that kind of cancel it out? Is it even better than it used to be? Does it just connect with me, or is it kind of like, we don't need it anymore in the collection? So that's what the concept with these revisit videos are. And in this video, we are looking at this classic blade. It's been around for decades. Back in the day, you didn't have a lot of options. You had, for a fixed blade camp knife or hunting knife, even possibly a combat knife. You know, you had like a couple Ontario knives, you had a couple Buck knives, then you had a couple K-bar knives, and that was really it. You know, now there's a ton of companies out there making products that are really good. So I want to see today just what this has going for it. How does a hollow grind work? You know, because that's something that this blade has, you know, for general camp tasks. What are any drawbacks, you know, that we'll discuss throughout this video, and just have a lot of fun. And the fact that this is a very accessible knife. You know, you can go to any sporting goods store and pick these up for about 50 bucks. So it's a great like gift knife. You know, in a pinch, you're like, oh man, I don't have time to order on Amazon or, you know, some other, you know, blade store. And, you know, you can run over to your local sporting goods store and they'll probably have this knife at a decent price point. You know, is it worth gifting for 50 bucks or maybe not? You know, so we'll hit all that today and just have some fun rolling in some beautiful blade footage on this Buck 119. So with that, let's go ahead and get to it, and as we revisit this blade. All right, as we come into this blade, again, the looks are just so iconic to me. They just connect with me on such an awesome level with that huge sweep. The clip point is just so wicked. I love it. I love the swedge on there. I used to not like clip points way back in the day. If you've been following the channel for a while, I was way more of like a drop point, no swedge kind of guy, particularly on any of my outdoor knives. And I've just fallen in love with it over the years. I definitely blame some of that on my good buddy Peter Kohler from Dark Timber Knives. He actually gifted this knife to me on my 30th birthday, which is pretty dope. So I've had this actually, now I realize, for about 4 years. So super cool blade. And that's kind of what we'll go into, is I just run in tons of footage for you guys. We'll talk just about the performance side of it. 420 high carbon. I believe there are some 5160 versions out there. There might even be like an S30V version floating around, so you can get them in some premium steels if you want to. I think for the price point, the 420 Boss heat treat, USA made, Rockwell 59 has proved itself for that price range of being a really good steel. It's somewhat rust resistant. It's not like impervious to rust. It's not going to be a super like stainless steel, but definitely better than like 1095 when it comes to rust resistance. The edge retention as well, I would put on par with most 1095 that I have used. I've only had to really, over the last 4 years when I busted out, do some tune-ups with a ceramic rod every once in a while. It hasn't ever chipped on me, you know, or anything like that. Now, the blade length overall is 6 inches, so it gives you, I think, a really beautiful amount of reach. And with the Ricasso, which really doesn't operate as a choil, you got about 5.5 inches, 5 1/4 to really work with. And at 0.17 inches thick, 0.17, it's going to be a stout blade, but not overly thick. And then with the combination of the hollow grind, this thing can perform like a Mora. Oh, dude, that is like filleting. So this is the benefit of having a hollow grind. Even though there's some strength issues for like really hard use, a hollow grind, if it's done well, and this is done well, I mean, you can just see there, this is like, I said it earlier, like on par with like a Mora. I mean, with just filleting. So your thicker, kind of like at the same thickness saber grinds are not going to cut like this. Even your full flats are going to have a kind of a hard time. This is like Scandi level carving, you can see there with that hollow grind. That ergonomic, the handle is just like so good. honestly. Every time I bust it out, I'm like, this can make feather sticks as good as any of my like companion or heavy duty companion Moras or a basic 511. You know, I mean, this thing, because of the edge geometry for the finer detail work, the precision work, the carving of a spear, the making of a notch, the feather sticking, because you're getting this kind of big, kind of, you know, buoy hunting blade, you're able to do this super fine work, which is phenomenal. And food prep is going to be really good with this. Now the point, because it's so precise and piercing, may not be necessarily the best for cleaning game. I'm not a hunter, I'm not going to speak like I am, but I do know that a blunter tip sometimes is better, so you don't accidentally nick guts and intestines and start to make a big mess inside your meat and possibly ruin your meat. So that's a pro and a con there on actual game processing. But the hollow grind doesn't really concern me because I know the limitations of this knife. And so that's what you really got to know, is what are the limitations of a blade like this. This is not a saber ground, super stout survival knife. I wouldn't call it that. I would call it a camp knife. I would call it a belt knife, a companion knife. If you have a hatchet, if you have a saw, you know, those type of things, it works really well. If you're just a backpacker and you just want to cut food and cut cordage and make a feather stick to help start your fire, you can split a little bit of kindling. It can do it. It's not great at it. It'll do the job, you know, of stuff that's maybe like 2 inches or less in diameter, that's not super hard, dense wood. And some of that is the shoulder on the hollow grind binds up a little bit. So those are aspects that you need to consider. And with a weight of 7.5 ounces, it's not going to be a chopper either. I mean, you can hack off some little like pinky thick limbs if you need to, but this has no lanyard hole. It's not a chopper. It's not designed for that. I mean, it is a precision tool, but what is the positive to me of that, even with the 90-degree spine, I mean, I can throw sparks with it. It's a great bushcraft knife. As long as you know the limitations of it and you're not thumping on it, you're not expecting to chop down trees and split, you know, 4-inch, 5-inch logs, you will get wicked fine cuts, better than a lot of other quote-unquote survival knives, and get the finer work done with a really elegant, really cool package. Now, one of the things I really like with this knife is the sheath. Now, a lot of knives, particularly in this price of like 50 bucks and USA made, the sheath is often an afterthought. It's like some crappy nylon thing that's barely holding the knife in there. You hold it upside down, it falls out, it rattles like crazy, you know, or it's some cheapo polymer thing that's just not really designed well. This is a leather sheath that is designed really well. I actually really enjoy it. Again, I've had it for, I think, like 3 years now, used it quite a bit, and the leather is holding up really well. You know, you got that nice loop over leather, good stitching, you got buck embossed there. It's really quiet. It's not going to rattle hardly at all, and you know, as partially kind of designed as a hunting knife, that's a really important thing. You don't want a loud, clacky knife. Holds itself in there, so even if you fall upside down, whatever, you got that really nice snap. You do have to be conscientious, you know, and kind of use your hands as you pull it out and then put it back in. That's only a little bit of a drawback, but because of how well built it is otherwise, that's not that big an issue for me. Good large belt that'll keep it riding about 2/3. So what I've done as a quick mod is attached a belt dangler. You can usually pick these up for about 20 bucks. I'll have some links below for you guys that I have attached this to. This really sets this knife like off. I mean, it is awesome when it hangs on your belt this way. Very accessible and just a great carry. So even if you don't do the dangler, I mean, the sheath for the price is really well done. It'll be quiet, it'll hold it secure, and I think hold up for a very long period of time. So now on to the handle, and this is where I need to correct some data that I didn't quite have accurate. I am not infallible. I definitely make mistakes. Sometimes I don't have all the data that I need, and so you guys have corrected me, and that's part of the reason why I'm redoing this video. I actually removed the old video because some of the info about the handles particularly I wasn't quite clear on, and so I'm correcting that. So I apologize, and so I'm going to correct some of that right now. Now, first off, the correction that I want to touch on is the material. I said that this was like a plastic material right here on the generic model. That is incorrect. I'm going to try and pronounce these two words. It is either made out of, there are two options basically, phenolic material, it's a polymer, phenolic, or Dymalux. depending on the version that you buy and what type of materials. And so I researched some of that. I just said it was like a plastic and felt kind of cheap. It does feel cheap, okay? But it's a polymer. When I did some more research on it, that actually holds up very well to stresses and heat and those type of things. And so it's a very stout blade in that regard. Now, again, I would not be batoning the heck out of this, beating on it. It even says on Buck's website, to not use these as hammers and, do all that type of stuff with it. So, I mean, do that at your own risk. It is, again, a belt knife, woods knife, not a survival beat the crap out of knife. So it could probably handle it, but I wouldn't try it, is basically what I wanted to get at. Now, what's really cool about it is that the ergonomics are fantastic. When you hold it, it's rounded. There are no hot spots. It's got a really nice thick swell to it. I've got large size hands. I wear large size gloves. It just really, really feels good in the hand. You can do reverse grips, again, like a woodscraft type of knife. You got a little bit of a hook there. You're just going to keep it in place. And you could do, again, those little light hacks if you needed, just kind of, either shape a piece of wood really quickly, or if you needed to hack off some like pinky to thumb sized little branches or something like that on a piece of green wood, you could get away with that, but that's about it. Now, the guard itself also is a positive, because as you can see here, there's hardly any gap in there. And again, I've never had any rattling or loosening up, and I've definitely been hard on this knife. But I like how it has a lower guard that's rounded, not sharp and abrupt, and is longer than the upper. So I can get over that guard and get really good precise cuts if I need to, and it's not sharp and painful. A lot of knives that have guards, they're either symmetrical in the same height at top and bottom, like I think of like a K-bar fighting utility knife, and that doesn't add for very good control when you're trying to do finer cuts. So this allows that, and it's rounded and contoured and not sharp and abrupt, so that makes it very comfortable and fun to use in the hand. So it's a very comfortable, very ergonomic blade for long periods of time, and that makes it, again, a good woods knife, possibly a good hunting knife depending on what you're doing, and its limitations with that sharp tip, that you're not going to fatigue your hand. Now, the drawback is there is zero traction on this thing. It is slick, and I don't really know why they didn't put any sort of texturing back in the day on that. I guess they were just assuming the guard was enough to keep your hand from sliding over it, which 9 out of 10 times it will. But it would have been nice just to have a little bit of texture. You could modify that with either like a heat gun and just put little texture, pocking or ribbing, stippling on it if you wanted to. You could just run like a used bike tube over it, or some Ranger bands, something like that, just to give it a little bit of a warmer feel to it, because it definitely does have like a cold, kind of hard plastic feel to it, even though it is very rounded, very ergonomic, and very comfortable, and it won't retain the cold as much as like an exposed tang knife would. So in colder environments, it is a dream to use. It was about, I can't remember what it was that day that we were filming, I think like 35 out there when you were seeing some of that work done. And so I enjoy that aspect to it, but it is a slick handle. So guys, let's hit price, but also just talk about where does this fit? Now that I've kind of gone through the handle, gone through the blade with you, kind of reminded you, gone down memory lane, enjoyed this was just fun, busting this out again with you guys to do some more use with it. I really do like these revisit videos. Now, as I said a little earlier in the video, these will fluctuate between about $45 and $55 for the generic 119, 119 special design. Now, you can get these again with some premium steels sometimes. You can get them with wood handles versus, or whatever. I think that's what the Dia whatever was that I listed. So there are other versions. You can even go a little higher, and obviously to about $80 to $100 depending on what the versions. So we'll have hyperlinks for you guys below over to BLADEHQ, GP Knives, Amazon. We do appreciate when you purchase through the hyperlinks that we offer to you below if this is connecting with you. But again, it is a bonus because in a pinch or last minute or just whatever, you're out and about and you're like, you know what, I just want a new blade to play around with, and you see one at a sporting goods store. A lot of places will carry this knife, and that is a nice bonus. You can find a USA made belt knife out there that has a lot of just iconic classic feel, and from everything I'm seeing and have seen for literally years, good performance. And when you compare it up against other blades in this price point, it's really hard to find anything that can even compete. You do have SRKs from Cold Steel. Those are going to be made overseas for about $45. You know, there are a few other K-bars that kind of come close in price point, but they're definitely going to be more of a tactical focus and feel to them. You really are going to have to go up into the $70s and $80 price points to find USA-made knives with the materials as well as designing that this has to offer. So it does have a very old school, iconic feel to it in that regard. And so again, I think where this sets itself apart from a lot of other knives though is that it is big, it is classic, it does have a cool feel and look to it, but it's a very precision tool. It's not like a lot of modern day survival knives that are kind of more like bulldozers. This is more like a Ferrari. It's precise, it's got precision, it can do fine delicate cuts, and it's not going to take a lot of effort. It's not going to take a lot of forearm strength, and it can do those precise cuts, and you're not going to get frustrated or feel like, well, I take my survival knife to do like the batoning and the chopping and the big work, but then I have to have a backup, you know, Mora or whatever, to do the finer work. I will put this up against any Mora knife I own or any other Scandi ground knife I own, and I would argue that this will be able to compete or even outperform the finer work that those can do with this design because of how long the blade is, the sweep, and some of the other aspects that we have been talking about. So that's where I do believe it still fits. It does absolutely have some just amazing capability, and it's just a super, super fun knife to have in the collection, to use, to revisit from time to time, and just have a blast with. And I think if you gifted it to anyone, they would be, if they weren't happy with that they got it, they're dummies. They're dum-dums, honestly, because it's just a fun, awesome blade, and I'm super pumped that I have it in my collection, and then that was a gift given to me from a close buddy of mine. So, guys, with that, thank you so much for coming over today, checking out the channel. Love to hear your guys' thoughts. If there are other knives you want me to see me revisit or other gear you want me to revisit and review in the future, I always appreciate that. I want to hear your guys' thoughts, again, on upcoming, you know, gear that you might want to see, but also how your experience with the Buck 119 has been over the years for you owners and people who have used them, and what your thoughts on it overall. Leave a comment below. Check out the other videos popping up. Subscribe if you're not a current subscriber. We're throwing up content all the time. You can check us out on Instagram and Facebook and all the social media. Finally, guys, always remember, stay equipped, stay prepared, and we'll see you out there.